Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a really powerful framework for creating classrooms where every single student can thrive. It's called the 5 Pillars of Inclusive Teaching. And really, it's a guide to designing lessons that just work for all kinds of minds, right from the get-go. So let's just dive right in with a question that every educator, every parent, heck, every mentor has to grapple with. In any room you walk into, you've got this incredible mix of thinking styles, different processing speeds, different ways of learning. So how do you actually design a lesson that connects with everyone?
And this right here, this is the reality of the modern classroom, isn't it? These aren't problems that need to be fixed. They're just different ways of seeing and understanding the world. A one-size-fits-all approach? It just doesn't cut it anymore when you have learners who need to literally touch concepts, who think in pictures, or who absolutely thrive on clear, predictable routines.
And this leads us to a really powerful shift in our perspective. Instead of seeing all those student differences as, deficits that we need to correct, we can see them as a call to action, a call to design better, more accessible teaching. And that's exactly where these 5 pillars come in, giving us a concrete guide to do just that.
Okay, our foundation starts right here with pillar number 1, make it concrete. This is all about making learning real, tangible, and vivid, taking it out of the abstract world of ideas and into the physical world that our students actually live in. So here's the challenge, right? Abstract ideas can feel like a totally foreign language to so many learners, especially those with autism or ADHD or maybe language processing differences. The solution? We ground the learning in rich, multi-sensory experiences. We make it something you can actually see, touch, and feel. So, how do we actually do that? Well, you could start a lesson with a real object instead of just words on a slide. You could wrap the learning inside a story, show how it connects to your students' actual lives, or even better, create a way for them to physically get their hands on the concept.
Yeah, just think about teaching fractions for a second. The abstract symbols for 1/2 or 1/4, they become instantly understandable when a student is physically cutting a pizza or folding a paper circle. The learning gets tied to a physical, memorable experience, which is so much more powerful than just the symbols alone.
Okay, so we've introduced the concept in a way that's real and tangible. But how do we make sure every student can actually do what we're asking them to do? Well, that brings us to our second pillar, model for success.
Here is a super common teaching pitfall. We show how to do something once, and then we just kind of expect everyone to get it. But that often leaves a lot of students feeling confused and left behind. The inclusive solution is to model, check, reteach, and support until every single student can succeed.
Now, what's so powerful about this is that it's a loop. It's not a straight line. You start by thinking aloud while you show them how it's done. Then, and this is so important, you check everyone's understanding, maybe using mini whiteboards. If you see gaps, you don't just move on. You reteach it in a new way before you guide the whole group through practice together.
And this quote just absolutely nails the mindset shift. Our goal isn't just to find that one student who gets it. The goal is to create the conditions where every student can show you they understand. It's a really profound change in how we define success in the classroom.
All right, so we've made learning concrete and we've modeled for success. Now, how do we make sure that every single student is actively thinking and participating, not just the few confident ones who always shoot their hands up? That's what Pillar 3 is all about, every voice heard. You know the traditional hands-up approach? The problem is it can make a huge portion of the class totally invisible. We only ever hear from the same few students. The solution is to build structured systems where participation isn't optional, it's just part of how the lesson works for everybody.
So what do these systems look like? Well, using mini whiteboards means you can see what everyone is thinking in just a few seconds. Structured pair talk gives every student a chance to put their ideas into words in a really low-stakes way. And a no-hands-up policy with random sampling, that keeps everyone on their toes and engaged because they know their contribution truly matters. So, with everyone participating, we can get a much better read on understanding. But what's the purpose of all that practice? Pillar 4, build, don't test, completely rethinks what we often call assessment.
This is such a critical distinction. When we ask students to recall information they haven't really mastered yet, it doesn't build learning, it just builds a sense of failure. The whole point of practice should be to strengthen understanding, not to catch students out.
And here's the number to keep in your head, 80 to 90%. When students are practicing something, they should be getting it right about 80 to 90% of the time. If the success rate is lower than that, it's not a sign that the students are failing. It's a sign that more teaching is needed before we ask them to practice on their own.
And that idea of successful practice leads us directly into our final pillar, which is all about the power of deep practice and rehearsal. It's about what we do after a student gives a correct but maybe kind of basic answer.
The thing is, it's so easy to just accept the first good enough answer and move right along. But when we do that, we're missing this huge opportunity. The solution is to use that first answer as a starting point and then rehearse the concept with the whole class to build a deeper, more flexible, and more confident understanding for everyone.
I mean, just look at how powerful this process is. You get an initial response, and then you invite them to improve it. Can you add a little more evidence to that? Then you open it up for their classmates to build on that idea. Finally, and this is so important, you have everyone practice explaining the now much improved concept. It totally transforms a simple Q&A into this rich, collaborative learning moment.
So as we start to bring this all together, you can really see how these 5 pillars are all connected. They create a system. It's not about just adding a few new tricks. It's a fundamental approach where student differences aren't just something to be accommodated. They become the very strengths that make the entire classroom richer. So here are the core takeaways. 5 simple reminders for your daily practice. Start concrete. Check everyone. Include all voices. Build before you test, and rehearse for fluency. It's a really powerful checklist for creating truly inclusive learning environments.
And so we'll leave you with this final thought. It's not about doing all 5 of these perfectly all at once. It's just about taking one step. So looking at this framework, what is the one pillar that you can consciously focus on building into your practice tomorrow to make learning more accessible and more meaningful for every mind in the room?